Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the International Map Industry Association. If you could mute your microphones, and we'll go ahead and turn off video because we're going to have our video on for our panelists, and we want you to be able to see them. So go ahead, and if you could just mute yourselves and turn off your video. We will have time later on where you can bring up your video and microphones. We'll be doing breakout sessions later on. So there will be an opportunity for everyone to network. So again, welcome everyone to the International Map Industry Association. This is where cartography meets industry. And today we're going to be talking about AI and the mapping community. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate that. We have a wonderful panel this morning and this afternoon for some of you, this evening. And we are going to be having them introduce themselves in a few minutes. Next slide, Donna. Sure. So again, just if we could mute yourselves and just keep your video off. We will be turning those on later on, but we do want you to put your questions into the chat. So we're not going to have much of presentations today. We're going to jump right into our panel discussion. So as we go along, as you think of questions, just drop them into the chat, and we'll get to those in the later on in the session. So we're welcome to ask any questions. Next slide. So I do want to acknowledge all of our affiliate participants with the British Cartographic Society, the Cartography and Geospatial Information Society, the International Cartographic Association, and the Open Geospatial Consortium. So we appreciate all of our affiliate partners, and you're going to hear from their leaders here in a minute. Next slide. We do want to acknowledge our sponsors. A number of our sponsors support IMIA throughout the year for events like this virtual event, as well as in-person events and other activities, along with activities at some of our sister affiliate organizations. Next slide. So one of the in-person events that we are doing is coming up in May. It's the Mapping Leaders Forum we do annually. And it's going to be in London. It's the 14th through the 15th, but really put the 13th through the 15th on your calendar, because we're going to have an exciting, amazing race across London, if you see that lower left. But we also have 16 great presenters, and we're going to also have time for interaction and networking there. So welcome you to London, really the 13th through the 15th of May. Next slide. All right, with that, we've got a distinguished panel this morning. And we're very excited to have all our 4 affiliates plus the IMIA president. I'm going to have them introduce themselves here. And so I think we'll just start alphabetically. Brian, we'll start with you.
Hi, Mark. I'm assuming you were calling on me to introduce myself first?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm playing with technology here. So yes, please.
Perfect. No problem. Well, thanks so much for teeing this up. I'm Micah Brachman. I'm a community manager at the Open Geospatial Consortium. For those of you who might not be familiar with the OGC, we're an international nonprofit, and we're focused in 3 main areas. The first area would be setting standards. So if you've ever looked at a map on a computer screen or a cell phone, it's probably one of our standards that's making that work. We also do research and development and fund opportunities for our members to push geospatial technology forward. The third component of the OGC is our community. We are the largest and oldest nonprofit international organization focused on geospatial technology, and we are member driven. So my role as community manager is really to do a lot of the outreach and engagement with the broader geospatial community. And I'm thrilled to be here today and to be part of this panel.
Great. Thank you, Micah. I apologize. I was playing with technology and I messed up.
No worries, Mark. No worries at all.
Thank you, Micah. Appreciate you being here. Chris, I think you're next.
Okay, right. Yes, okay. My name is Christopher Budas. I'm the Vice President at the British Cartographic Society. And I've been in this field for I've been in the field for about 17 years. That was after getting a degree in Geographic Information and Mapping Sciences at Glasgow. I'm also a senior geospatial scientist with the UK MOD as part of my day job. The British Cartographic Society is a charity, and we offer a unique forum for exchanging ideas and sharing knowledge on all aspects of maps and map making. We promote better mapping through programs such as our GeoViz program, and we work alongside with other bodies within the UK in the promotion of mapping and generally promoting the better aspects of how to create better maps. Again, that's everything from me.
All right, great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Georg, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, with pleasure. First of all, thanks for having me and also for setting up this fantastic event. It's really great to see so many people joining in. My name is Georg. I'm a professor for cartography in the beautiful city of Vienna, Austria. And I'm also currently president of the International Cartographic Association, the ICA. And the ICA sees itself as the global authority for cartography and geoscience. We are operating since many decades on an international level. We are also recognized by the United Nations and by the International Science Council, and we operate through commissions to try to capture the newest developments in cartography, and that includes map making as well as map use. Therefore, obviously, AI plays a crucial role for us as well, and I was very happy to have the opportunity and the pleasure to work with the IMIA, with Mark and the colleagues from the IMIA in the last years together as well. And we do so also in our upcoming big international cartographic conference, which will take place this August in Vancouver. And I really hope that I will not only see all of you virtually today, but also in person at that event in Vancouver. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Georg. And so I don't forget, we are actually planning to have folks from on this panel, or at least from these organizations, doing a panel at the International Cartographic Conference. We appreciate their hosting us. And we're going to continue this conversation at the International Cartographic Conference in August.
But
so
I guess
I'm excited about that. Yeah. So our next panelist is Vivien, and with the IMIA. Vivien.
Thanks for having me, Mark. So I am the newly elected incoming president of IMIA. And then for my day job, I'm the CEO of the Edward Stanford Group, based in the United Kingdom since 1853. We are a retailer and wholesaler of maps and nautical charts and other related travel and nautical products. We sell direct to consumers through our various brick and mortar shops and also on the various websites that we operate. We also wholesale both land-based mapping and nautical products to other retailers. We sell paper products, but we also sell a pretty large quantity of digital products, including digital maps for planning purposes, digital nautical charts for navigation, and digital publications. Stanford doesn't any longer create and publish our own products. When the company first started in 1853, we were really well known for our own mapping, but we are now not wanting to compete with the publishers that we represent. So we're just reselling, and we're always on the lookout for new products to sell. So let that be an advertisement to everyone. Our terrific International Map Industry Association is a worldwide membership organization that exists to connect any individual or organization involved in the business of mapping. And we do that by organizing virtual events like this one. This is possibly our most successful to date, with lots of participants, and also in-person events. In addition, we share information about our members and their activities and their businesses on our website and by email and social media. Our next in-person event, Mark has already given a big plug for, which is the Mapping Leaders Forum in London, which will start on the afternoon of May the 13th, and then will be a full day of conference on the 14th and 15th. It's open to both members and non-members. Of course, we're hoping to entice non-members to attend. The fee for attendance we're trying to keep very reasonable. And you can find details on our website, imiamaps.org. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vivien. And then Kolar, with Cages, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, Mark and everyone. Thanks for having me first. My name is Koylu. At my day job, I'm an associate professor of geographic information science and cartography at the University of Iowa. And I'm also the president of Cartography and Geographic Information Society, which is a diverse network of educators, researchers, practitioners at the forefront of cartography and geographic information science. So what makes Cages distinct is, I think, not only the fact that it sits in between academia, industry, and government, where we have a diverse set of members, and also this is represented on our board, but also it sits in between the bigger geospatial industry, which is like including GI science and computer scientists that study in this geospatial industry, and also cartography. So we provide support for scholars, for students, for this research awards. We have our conference like Autocarta every 2 years. So now we renamed it as Cages, which is going to happen in 2026. And we have strong alliances and collaboration with other associations, such as ICA, and that would be also my highlight, ICC 2025 in Vancouver. We are very excited to be there and to meet you in person.
Great. Thank you, Caglar. Let's see. I think thank you to all of our panelists. Just to kind of open things up and introduce, these are the kind of the topics that we're going to be discussing today. And so as I think about AI and how it affects the mapping industry, I kind of think of it in 3 ways, the top 3 bullets there. There's the generative AI, similar to like ChatGPT and others that are out there, where we're using large language models and processing what would be considered human speech into an artificial intelligence model or a deep learning model, and generating content that's been searched. So it's really that large language model is the key here. There's the other one I think of is the combination of artificial intelligence and geographic information systems, and that's often referred to as GeoAI, and that is applying the AI deep learning models to things like imagery and being able to identify change detection and identifying features on imagery and even extracting those features like buildings or roads. And then the third way that I see AI really affecting our industry is with predictive analytics, using AI. So using what's happened in the past, using the AI to process that, and then be able to predict in the future. So I think those are kind of if we think about in those 3 kind of buckets for AI, those are kind of some of our discussion points today. And where I think that we're going to be talking about is how does that affect our community mapping projects? How does it impact the map and GIS markets in particular? And how does it affect our authoritative data providers that make up many of our members? So with that, I'm going to open it up to the panel. If we think about generative AI, because we did a short survey, and I'm not going to go into that because Vivien will be talking about that, but overwhelmingly, when we did the survey, and thank you to all of you that did fill that in and send it to us. When we did that survey, we found that most of you have a lot of experience, or at least some experience, with generative AI. So things like ChatGPT and others. So let's see. Caglar, thank you for turning on your video. I'm going to ask all the panelists if you could turn on your video so everyone can see you. Thank you. All right. Oh, I see you now. Sorry, it's probably it's on the wrong screen. So I'll open it up for the floor for anyone who'd like to just talk about what is your experience with generative AI and your professional association that you represent. How are you seeing that impacting the map industry today? I'll go ahead and unmute yourselves when you go to speak.
Well, Mark, do you want me to comment on the survey that we sent to the IMIA members? Because we have some actual data, which is great. So I have to say I was a little bit nervous when I was asked to represent IMIA on this panel, because even though I am personally using AI and quite a few of my colleagues are, I didn't really have a clue as to how much it's being used by the IMIA membership. So the board of IMIA decided it would be a really good idea to send out this survey to members to ask them, first of all, and I'm going to speak now about current usage, and we can come on. I know, Mark, you're going to want to turn this to the future, but for now, I'll just talk about the responses regarding current usage. First of all, we had a lot of responses and really useful sort of free text responses. We had multiple choice questions and then some free text responses, which were very helpful. I have to say, after this event, I think it might be really, really useful to send out the survey again to an even wider group. So setting that aside, what do we learn? Well, as Mark has sort of hinted at, based on the survey, it seems that all or almost all of our current members are using various types of AI, with by far the most commonly used tool is ChatGPT. In fact, every single person who responded to the survey said that they were using ChatGPT, which I think is quite interesting. The next most frequently used tools are Microsoft Copilot and Gemini from Google. And I actually hazard a guess that some of you may not even realize, particularly Gemini, that you're actually using it, that if you just have Google installed and you type something into your browser asking Google something, it's going to use Gemini, and a little box will pop up and it'll say, here's what Gemini has to say. So I think some of our users who responded to the survey perhaps didn't even realize that. So anyway, I will say it was interesting that 10 other generative AI tools were named in the survey, 10 others, which is a lot. I mean, personally, I use Siri, I use Otter AI for meeting notes, and there might even be another one that I use, I can't remember. But that's really interesting to know that there's this broad use. The other thing we asked in the survey that pertains to right now is why are you using AI now? And the number one reason by far was to save time, to improve commonly used workflows, standard workflows, to draft emails and documents, and to take meeting notes. So probably what you guys were, thinking about before I even gave you the answer from the survey. Those are all the sorts of things that I use generative AI for right now, and that was very much the response from the survey. So, Mark, I think that's my kind of 2 minutes, and that's my summary.
Vivien, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I was very surprised looking at the results, just how many different types there are out there. I was aware of probably most of them, but not all of them. So that's interesting. And I was very pleased to see how much people are using it. I wasn't sure what level of use there is, but everyone seems to be at least dabbling in it. And I think that's great. And I think we're all learning as we go along the path. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of share a little bit of our shared knowledge. So with that, I'll let any of the other panelists kind of, how do you see AI impacting in your professional associations and the map industry?
Yeah, if I may continue, Mark, I would like to add to what Vivien said about maybe like an informal survey with students in our disciplines, that they basically demand AI education heavily. So it becomes one of the key core elements which are demanded. And I think it's also important for education systems like curriculums to reflect that heavily. And that will become an attractive element of a curricula. So that's another aspect in the discussion here. But in trying to answer your question about if our industry is going to be impacted by AI, I think all of us might eventually agree on yes, heavily, of course. And from the ICA perspective, we see that in several ways. And I think I would maybe focus on 3 points here. The first point is that we see that the cartographic knowledge, which is existing by described methodologies, or simply by having the maps as a tool, as a source of knowledge, that is important for developing models further, like language models further. So to include cartographic knowledge into this is going to be a big thing to do, or is ongoing, obviously. So that will help the generative AIs to become more able or unable to answer geographical or spatial questions. And cartography is obviously key in this respect by helping to develop that and structure that. But I'm also thinking that the GeoAI aspect is important and interesting. I'm thinking about that rather from the perspective of not only things like you mentioned, change detection and data processing and those type of things, but also in respect to, if you understand a map as something which is communicating spatial information, that will help us to eventually personalize that better in future as well. So I see an impact there. But as we have discussed for several years now already, also in the context of IMIA activities, and I personally also think that is really key for all of our discussions here, is the explainable part of AI. So whatever happens, whatever we do with AI tools, either they are geo-related or map-related, yes or no, at the end of the day, there's going to be a product. And at the end of the day, I need to be sure that I can rely on that it's trustworthy, that I know what it's all about. So it's not only important for us as a domain, as a discipline, to develop technologies and ideas about how to deal with it and how to make better prediction models and so on and so on. But ultimately, we need to immediately think about how do we explain what we are doing? How do we make sure that the maps we are producing in future, produced by AI eventually, or with the help of AI, I can trust, or at least tell me what is included, so to say, so that I can make my own decision on top of it. I think this will be a crucial point for our domain and our industry to keep up with that. And I think we have developed already ideas about that. And I think that will be also an element of it. So to answer your question, yes, big impact in 3 ways. This is the way I see it. Thank you, Mark. Back to you.
Great. That's great. Thank you, Georg. And just as a reference, we've worked with all of our affiliates. And if you go to the IMIA maps.org website, if you go to the far right, you'll see affiliates. We actually have ethics and cartography that all of us have kind of collaborated on over the last 3 years. And so there's a whole body of knowledge there that you can look up on ethics and mapping. And we're, as Georg mentioned, we're focusing this year on trust in mapping. And that was our topic of a workshop that we did, actually last year. And at the Mapping Leaders Forum, we'll continue that discussion in May. And then we'll have this panel discussion again at the International Cartographic Association. So I'm excited. I think Georg's correct that having understanding where we're getting the data, what the results are, and trusting those results are really important here. Micah, did I see you put your hand up?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because trust is something we're certainly working on a lot at the OGC and we think about a lot. One of the cool things we're doing on the standard side of the house is our training data markup language. So the idea behind this standard is that we've got this world of training data that these AI models need. And how do we standardize that so it's interoperable, so people can share training data sets across different platforms? So I did just pop a little link in the chat to our training data markup language standard. If anybody wants to take a look at that, that's really a key thing. And that integrity, provenance, and trust issue is huge for us right now. We're in the process of standing up some R&D work around that as well. So I did want to circle back to just on that idea of how do we actually use generative AI along with maps, right? Because it's a really important question. And that's where a lot of our members through our innovation program are really pushing that forward as well. So we just wrapped up our climate and disaster resilience pilot. And one of the really cool things that one of our members did was they were able to take a data set showing flood risk, so a thematic map showing different areas of flood risk in Montreal, and they were able to integrate that with a chatbot. So your average map user comes, looks at a map like that, even if you can geolocate yourself, you're kind of like, well, I'm not quite sure what the red means versus the blue means versus the purple means. So with the chatbot integration, you could actually ask that question of the map. You could say, am I at flood risk at my housing location? And then it would return an answer. So in terms of interpreting maps, I think that's a really killer use case for generative AI right now. There's another topic that I think you had posted on there, Mark, talking about just authoritative data sets, right? And what's the impact that we expect AI to have there. So another cool thing that we did through this pilot study was had one of our members take a look at all the different geospatial data that NOAA hosts. And they've got a ton of it, right? They've got a ton of data. They are certainly an authoritative data provider. And one of the challenges that they have is that it's spread across a lot of different websites, right? There's climate.gov, there's NOAA.gov. There's at least 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 other websites that are NOAA affiliated that contain data and information about those data too, metadata. So one of our members was able to build a chat interface where you could ask a plain language question of all of those websites, right? And it would index all those websites and then return a one-page summary of the information that was found to answer that question, along with links to the data themselves, right? So being able to then, kind of say, what is the climate impact over the last 20 years, the climate change in Southern California, right? And it would return an answer from those authoritative data sets, and then also contain links out to geotiffs and other types of imagery assets that then you could go and actually perform a deeper analysis on. So just a couple examples there of what we're working on from both the standard side and then from the R&D side as well. Okay, that's great.
Thank you, Micah. I think it's really good to see OGC. They've been early in approaching this and being very proactive. So I did see a chat from Jason. Jason's up way past bedtime here, and so we are recording this. It will be available out on the IMIA website as soon as we get a chance to process it. So thanks, Jason, for that. Let's see. Chris, did you want to add anything to this? Where are you seeing AI?
Yes. So just there, it's echoing what Vivien said earlier. It's the fact that I think one thing we have to understand. One thing I see as well is that the tool that AI is it's a very powerful tool that can be used in this in this sector. It's played a part elsewhere, and it will play a part here. But the problem is that it's a tool, and it's some people will see it as this magic solution to everything, but it's a tool that still that can be used by skilled people to actually understand what it is. And usually you'll need someone to look at what's been produced to see make sure what's been made is makes sense and is actually telling the truth that we value when we look at a map. And some of this also falls heavily into the training data. So it's what is if we if we yeah, if we don't put if you don't have the good data for training these various AI models, you'll have it'll have a detrimental impact on any output that you get. But with saying that, there are quite a few benefits that you can get from AI. So at the risk of running well over the 2 minutes, I'll just say a few of them. But the automation and efficiency. So AI tools can automate many aspects of map creation, such as feature extraction and predictive modeling. And this will reduce the time and labor required to produce maps. So this allows the production of faster production and of more complex map designs. You can get real-time integration with AI enabling the integration of real-time data into maps, which can be critical for the applications like navigation and disaster response. And this would allow the dynamic updates and more responsive mapping solutions. And there's a level of ability to do customization and personalization. So AI being able to tailor maps to individual user needs by analyzing their behavior and preferences, and leading to more personalized and relevant map experiences. So I'll just stop there rather than running on for quite a while.
All right. No, that's great. Thank you. And I think I'm going to tee up the next question here, because I'll tag into what Chris was just saying. I've been working with GeoAI since 2018. I was actually surprised how long when I went back and looked at it. And I've been chairing a working group on GeoAI and remote sensing since 2020. Some of the results that we've gotten out of that, again, that's using the imagery and AI models, particularly deep learning models, to do change detection and feature identification and feature extraction, as Chris just mentioned. And those are the high value use cases that this working group, this is 34 organizations from 30 countries working on GeoAI. Those are the high value use cases. They identified the high value feature classes or feature types, layers, that are first of all, it's buildings. That's a big issue across many mapping agencies. How do we get buildings, particularly globally? And AI is a way to do that we could never, ever imagine being able to do before. And also with transportation networks and land cover. Land cover is constantly changing, as well as transportation. And how do you keep up with that? And AI is a way to do that. So I've also just really started to get into generative AI. We are using, and you're going to see a lot coming from Esri this year. We've already announced that we are using generative AI for what we call AI assistance. And that is inside the technology. You'll see in most of our, increasingly more and more of our tools and technology, AI is there as a tool that you can actually use just your natural language to actually instruct the GIS and have it do analysis. And that's the third area we do is the predictive analysis. So if I think about the GeoAI, which has been around for a while, the predictive analysis, which GIS always has done well, but AI is now enhancing and accelerating, and then the generative AI. I'll ask each of the panelists, from your perspective, which one do you think is having the biggest impact on the mapping industry right now, and why do you think that?
So I really think the generative AI is having the biggest impact just because it allows you to interact with the map and with geospatial data in a way that's much more natural and doesn't require as much specialized training. When I was first learning GIS and starting out with, what was that? ArcView 3.1, I think was the first one that I used. Great tool, could do everything, but figuring it out took a lot of training, right? That was about 2 years of training in college and then some on-the-job training as well to figure out how to make a decent looking map and even how to understand the data that I was working with. So I think the capability of asking questions of your GIS in natural language, right? What does this field mean, right? What's the average of this, field in my data? What do these colors on the map mean? Simple questions like that ordinarily would require really specialized knowledge of highly complex software. I think that's the killer use case right now. I certainly believe in the power of some of the algorithms that we use, neural networks in particular, to speed up some of the geoprocessing that we've always done. I'm not convinced that it's fundamentally different, though. So maybe that's a controversial opinion within the industry. I'd be curious to hear what the other panelists think about that. But when I look at feature extraction, I say, yeah, we've been doing that for 20 years. We do a pretty good job of it. If we can do it faster, great. But if all of a sudden we're calling feature extraction GeoAI because it sounds better, then I'm not sure if that's a real value added. However, I certainly believe that generative AI, the ability to interact with our geospatial data and our maps and our GIS using a much more natural way, as opposed to having to click in exactly the right spot and enter exactly the right value in our software, is absolutely huge and is a game changer.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Micah. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I would like to add something onto this continuous discussion, first highlighted by Chris, that AI is essentially a tool, and Micah really highlighted the beauty of being able to like make a map in a split second, right? So I think there's really an important emphasis that have been put out there by cartographers and GI scientists that now there's a lot of responsibility for the users, because of course there's more automation, there's more efficiency, we're able to make maps, and pretty much the entire population could make maps now. But where does that deep knowledge embedded in traditional geography, geographical analysis, and cartographic design principles go? I think, like, I use the phrase back to the foundations as like something like a signpost for us to be able to like make this education available for the entire population, so that people can understand misinformation, misleading maps. They can judge the data sources, what goes into the map that ChatGPT or another large language model makes. I mean, there's a lot of like bias that is involved that may come from the data, the model itself, and then the training data sets that have been mentioned. And and also we're in a way that we're branding the same things, just Micah said, the same things we've been doing over 20, 30 years to GeoAI is not really natural. But there is, in fact, some research or some use cases of AI that is really natively or naturally GeoAI, where we have been using these deep learning, machine learning models, not to just like all these raster data sets or satellite image processing tasks, but like to GPS data, to understand hidden patterns from big data sets, complex data sets that span across like different geographic scales and temporal scales. So I think those are kind of like the novelty part of GeoAI that I am really interested in looking at.
Yeah, no, that's great, Caglar. And I appreciate that. A lot of what we do is fundamental geographic, it's the GI and the mapping, but we're using new technology. We're applying new technology. So I love that perspective there. Georg, I see you unmiked, and I was going to.
Yeah. If I may, I would like to add on this fascinating discussion. And also in the chat, there was one colleague saying it reminds him on early digital days of cartography in a sense. And I really think if I'm taking a cartographer's lens on the discussion, I would say what AI forces us to do is a little bit similar to what the computerization did with cartography at one point. It forces us to think about what are we doing? Can we describe that properly? I mean, for instance, the idea of what is a cartographic knowledge, what are the algorithms, the methods we are doing, is actually now, captured, so to say, by algorithms, by models, but they also reflect back on us to be able to define that. So to really come up with a cartographic ontology, so to say, so that we are able to explain what the machine is going to do eventually by reasoning on our data and heuristically, so to say. And also when you think about the styling element, I mean, generative AI will definitively help us to maybe produce out from a particular data based on the ontologies which are described, then different styles in this. And now all of this we have the knowledge, so to say, but that I think AI is going to help us to really structure that, to describe that. It will reflect back on us. It's going to strengthen, I think, it's going to strengthen the definition of and the relevance of maps as a tool to express spatial information. So ultimately, I see AI as an instrument which has a big impact on the way we use it, in how we produce maps, and it's going to produce very bad maps, of course, but also it's going to be a boost for our domain and our disciplines. So it will reflect back on us. So this is how I see it as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Georg. And I just want to remind people, please put questions in the chat. We will get to that in just a second. I'm just going to finish our panel on this question. So, Chris, maybe I could call on you. I think your community, not only BCS, but also the community you work in your day job, were early adopters of AI. And I think your community actually identified early on that it's human in the loop. And so maybe I'd like to get your perspective from your side of things. Which of those kind of AIs do you think is most impactful to your community?
Oh, it's an interesting question. That's trying to decide it. I think the key thing when we look, as I said, with AI is the fact it's a tool that we want to make, that we have to make use of, and well, a tool that can be used and unfortunately misused. So I think out of all, I think the tools, after a brief thought, would be GeoAI, and I think just really the fact that I think some of the aspects that can be quite useful. And the fact is, when we're trying to do things such as look at the integration with the Internet of Things and smart cities, for example. So there's a lot of these are things that have not traditionally existed in a lot of our systems, but we have a lot more access to now. So it's the fact of being able to integrate the Internet of Things devices and provide real-time data on things like traffic, air quality, and infrastructure. In fact, we can maybe do generally doing data analysis and automation. So being able to automate the extraction, classification, detection of information from various sources, such as satellite imagery, but then also moving into things such as video and text. As other examples of areas that we can draw this information. But I would say yes. I personally think myself that it's and well, this is a good view. It's never been easier to make a map, but then again, it's never been easier to make a bad map. So, and this just can so having the human in the loop is also is a key thing, because as I said before, we can produce you can produce a lot of very nice and beautiful looking maps, but then when you look at it, what you may find is that it doesn't meet the use that we're expecting, and maybe it's created something extra which it thinks is a good idea, but us as a cartographic community would identify that, going, no human would do that. So that's but it's the aspect of being able to speed up the production of maps, because there's a lot of tedious aspects which are essentially get right, but take that time. But if we can reduce it to the fact that now if we can get an AI to do the generation of these aspects, and then just have a human have eyes on of what's been produced and proof what's been done, and then do any correction as required. So hopefully that answers a few of the questions. Hopefully that answers a bit more of the question.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. And just to wrap up this question, Vivien, I'm interested in your perspective and maybe kind of what you saw coming out of the survey.
Yes. So I think, again, going back to the IMIA member survey, we asked members which type of AI they thought was going to have the biggest impact on the future of their businesses. So again, you know, IMIA is all about the business of mapping. So I think that the business people answering this question come at it slightly differently. So the first is AI like ChatGPT, generative AI, that's going to impact our business just like hundreds of other businesses out there, whether it's farming or you know, food manufacturing or the supply of technical equipment or whatever your business is. We're just like other industries that generative AI is going to improve efficiency through the automation of many routine tasks. And if I think back to the early 1980s, when spreadsheets were in their infancy and word processing was also in its infancy. I mean, I remember being a super duper Lotus 123 user as a youngster at McKinsey. And I can tell you back then, this was ages before Microsoft and Excel. One thing that Lotus 123 did not do was when you put a formula into a spreadsheet, it didn't tell you that it was wrong. And it just wouldn't give you an answer. And so you had to try and figure out why was it wrong. And the word processor wouldn't tell you if you'd misspelt a word. So I'm using those analogies because from a business point of view, one of the problems with ChatGPT and other generative AI is there's no rules built in that tell you when it's wrong. And I know we've touched on this topic, which is, you know, you can make a map, you can simplify a task, but there aren't any guardrails that tells you when it's wrong. And so that, I think, is something that's really is an evolution that we need. The second type of AI that the respondents to the survey talked about is GeoAI, that obviously we're going to use to analyze spatial data. And what I saw in the responses, and what really I think about from a business point of view, business of mapping, is that there could be some amazing opportunities for IMIA members and other commercial organizations, and Mark, people like Esri know this very well already, is that people who are mapping experts are going to be able to help industries who don't have any mapping skills. So, you know, we have mapping skills, and if we can harness GeoAI to help them, yes, maybe we can sort of train them, maybe we can also sort of lead them in the direction of the water so that they can drink it and you know, use it appropriately. And I think a great example would be, and this will move us right into community mapping projects. So I'll just touch on it, but here in the UK, where I am, that I know that many members of the public would like to do the right thing and buy an electric car, but they're really worried about getting it charged. And so, you know, I foresee this sort of giant demand by all sorts of towns and cities and local community groups and residents associations to have properly mapped where are the car charging stations. And by the way, is the charging station free, or do you have to pay for it? And what kind of plugs does it have? You know, that type of thing. So maybe that's just a taster, Mark, to lead us into the community mapping projects.
Yeah, that's great. I am going to, if we get time, I'll get to that. But I did want to take questions from the audience because I did promise them that. And I'm going to combine two of the questions. So one was a comment by Eric Rybach, a longtime IMIA member. And he talked about, you know, how data, when it first came out in the 90s on CD-ROMs, you know, it seemed miraculous, but it was also full of bad data. And that kind of goes with Indy Hurt, who's the former past president from Cages. And Indy was on our panel last year. And she said transparency in the input data sets used in AI-based maps and spatial products will continue to be critical. And I think that's absolutely spot on. So she's saying, what are the fundamental understanding of sample size and the impacts of things like MAEP and ecological fallacy remain relevant? All this ties into the trust aspect. So I'm wondering if anyone wants to kind of comment on this idea of the data sources and what that impact is on the relevancy of the data. Yeah, Vivien, I see you've got, it looks like, no, I thought you had your hand up. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
well, no, I'm happy to just continuing the theme that I was on. I mean, I think that if you have a known community of providers of information, then there is the greatest possible level of trust. And I'll give you an example from the maritime charting industry. The leading supplier of nautical charts worldwide, the gold standard, is the United Kingdom Hydrographic Office, also known by their brand name of British Admiralty. And they have a suite of about 4,000 charts that cover the globe, and every week, every day, they are applying corrections to those charts. But they basically will only accept data to be provided that will then be applied by known providers. So just take that concept and think about that for every type of mapping. It's fantastic that we have OpenStreetMap, but people haven't been vetted. You don't know their qualifications. You don't know, to what degree can you trust them, quite honestly? And that's what it boils down to. And that's where, when I think about tiny projects, community mapping projects, the great thing about that is, you know all the people in your community, you know the 27 people who've all signed up to add the car charging points to your little map, and there can be incredibly high level of trust. So what will be, for me, really a wonderful way of moving forward is there some way that we could kind of accredit people, make sure that they're part of our trusted mapping community, and then we'll all want them to participate in our mapping going forward. But that's just one perspective.
No, that's great. Thanks, Vivien. Georg, I saw you on.
I if I may, I would like to comment on what Indy said in her chat comment. I fully agree with this. I think one of the problems with the topic of that we want to shine transparency into what's ongoing, into the black box of AI, so to say, is that we always say, well, let's look behind the pixel. I have a map and I'm looking behind the pixel, and then I'm describing, okay, yeah, well, there have been those type of processes, design processes, generalization, classification, whatsoever. But ultimately, I'm coming back then to the raw data. And we tend to think about, well, that's it. And we cannot go further, but we need to go further. And so I fully agree with her that actually the data itself, which I used to produce maps and to make maps, the data itself usually reflects also biases, usually reflects also all kind of heterogeneousness, so to say, in a sense, which is not covered by the standards which we are using for metadata. And so we need to, actually, AI really pushes us also in this direction, from my perspective, that we need to better describe what data we are using and what biases are included in this, so to say. So that's one part, I think, which is really important for this explainable part. And if I may, Mark, if I'm already having the floor, there's another comment in the chat window about, is there have been ever a quality control assessment on maps being produced by AI? And we are trying to build something currently in my group together with others, where we try to look at, I'm using the output of a generative AI tool, and I'm looking at particular indicators, something like geometry, attributes, so to say, but especially also on the Gestalt law, so to say, and the topology, because this is what generative AI tools currently are not doing right, in a sense, very often. So there are some ideas about how to do that, but that's ongoing, and there's going to be, I can see a lot of this discussion ongoing in the future on this.
Oh, that's a great comment. Thank you, Georg. Chris, I see you're unmiked also. So what's your perspective?
It's generally quite interesting that the original questions that you have there. It is the importance of the importance of the data putting the data into these various models is important, and knowing where they come from is really a big decider. If with things such as these large community projects, it's you do get quite a bit of variation sometimes in what someone's been producing. So the problem is that some people will know if you come from a specific geo background, maybe you are a map maker, you'll know exactly what the sort of things that are important that you want to take note of, and sometimes the importance of accuracy. Whereas if you're just trying to do your bit to make it to generate this, to gather this data, it could lower the quality. But then again, you might have someone that's just up to mischief who wants to do something for a laugh, and it will be the user later that finds something that's hidden in their data. And once you start putting these sources into things such as various AI models, you're less likely to have that person at the beginning who'll be sifting that data and going, even at the early stage when you're importing it, you look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense. But if it's an AI importing it, it will be much further down the line before you notice that there's actually a problem, and that would be an interesting challenge. But looking at these trying to figure out these authoritative sources, and but then also the aspect of looking underneath the bonnet of what of the AI models, of going, what is this what's in the black box, what's it actually doing. And I think that is also a challenge, because we know exactly what I think I'd like to think a lot of us know what what's necessary for making good maps, but it's trying to see what's inside a model, which are usually closed off to us, so we don't see what considerations have been made, and maybe what's the background of the people that have been producing these models. Because if you don't have the full geo background, you don't have the full geo and cartographic background to understand the importance of various aspects. You even just down to things such as knowing the right hierarchies of that are involved, which is a challenge.
Yeah, no, that's great, Chris. I think you bring up some good points. So what's the provenance of the models, not just the provenance of the data, what the source, what's in those models. And I think you have a good point. It's a lot easier to put bad data in than it is to get it out once you put it in there. So how do we do that? Chala, I think we may end up, you and Micah may be the last ones here just because of time. So Chala, what's your final thoughts here?
I wanted to touch base on the model side, because we've been talking about the training data that should be transparent, maybe multi-source, multi-scale, cross-validated between different geographical and social contexts. But at the same time, it's the model. I think, like in these comments about the principles of geography, like modifiable aerial unit problem, or the processes like spatial dependence, spatial autocorrelation. We magically think that AI is going to sort all of these things out. I think it's critical that we understand that human in the loop will continue to be very, very essential until we could develop artificial general intelligence, which I think it's far, far in the future if it ever happens. So I think, like, the emphasis I want to make is just these models need to be fed not just data, but also theory, that as humans, we developed over hundreds of years for certain topics, right? So I think we could be wrong about our theories, but like we need to also like feed into our models, the processes and theory into AI, so that we can better represent the nature of the phenomena we are modeling.
Yeah, no, Charles, I think that's a great comment. I think there is a lot of theory, and really we have a knowledge base that we can draw on. So that's a good point. And I think that's an underutilized made point. Micah, I think I'm going to let you wrap us up here, because we are going to move into the breakout session here in a minute. So please stay on, everyone. We are going to move into breakout rooms to have further discussions, and each of our speakers will be in each of the breakout rooms, so you get a chance to talk individually. So Micah, I'll let you take us home here.
Sure. So first of all, Indy, great question. Reminds me of some of the many interesting philosophical discussions we had in grad school and some of our seminar series and whatnot. So really appreciate that. I think one thing I do is just circle back to our training data markup language, right? Where we really are putting forward an international standard for what the inputs into AI models should look like, right? So people can understand them. So the human in the loop can do that QA QC process, because I still feel that fundamentally that's going to be a human function, right? Maybe the AI models can get there, but I don't think we're quite there yet. So another important consideration, I think, is knowing what's happened to your data, right? This provenance aspect of your data. I think a lot of people on this call have done an analysis where you start with shapefile 1, then you move to shapefile 2, then it's shapefile 2 underscore final, then it's shapefile underscore final 3, right? And all of a sudden you're like, what the heck happened here? So this is going to continue to be an issue in our industry, and AI arguably can make it worse, right? Because all of a sudden you have a black box that doesn't necessarily have that knowledge built in that we as humans do. We kind of remember what we did, right? The AI has some memory, but a lot of times it's just, let's produce the outcome that seems right. So that's where the human in the loop comes in, looks at the output of an AI and says, does this pass the smell test, right? Is my data obviously spatially autocorrelated, right? Where everything, all the variables line up, right? All of a sudden, my map isn't really telling me anything new, right? So this is something that a human will see and I think detect as well as an AI, if not better, still for a long time. I'd also like to point out some of the work that we're doing through our blockchain working group, where we actually have now a defined process in place for recording every change made to a data set on the blockchain. So that way you can always go back, right? If you get an output from an AI, you say, this doesn't make sense. By using this standard, then you can say, oh, let's go back to the previous version and see if that one looks okay, and continuing going back in time as needed to understand the provenance of your data, to understand what happened to it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Micah. Again, everyone, please stay on. We're going to be doing breakout rooms just here in a minute. I just got a couple slides to wrap us up. Donna, if you could put the slides back up, that would be great. So I do want to thank each of our panelists. Each of them are very active affiliate members with the International Map Industry Associations, the British Cartographic Society, the Cartography and Geoinformation Society, the International Cartographic Association, and the Open Geospatial Consortium, all great partners, and I appreciate each of you for joining. We just didn't have enough time. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but I do appreciate each of you, and we will continue this conversation at the IMIA Mapping Leaders Forum in May in London, and also at the International Cartographic Conference in August in Vancouver. And we will be having topics, so we'll continue this discussion.